Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. Gus Kattengell with you, along with Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com. Jim, good morning to you, sir. It is a Monday. But
good morning, Gus. How are you?
4 straight losses, 6 out of 7, you know. Feels like it's August outside, humid, sweaty.
I like the warm weather. I'll try to be positive.
You're never going to convince me that you're not a New Yorker. Anyway, we got a lot to get into because, look, obviously since we last chatted, the Pels have only played one game. They played Friday at Orlando. Didn't come away with the win there. But, Jim, it was almost like the double of the bad news. You came up short 115-88 in that game. And then over the weekend, you get the news that Zion Williamson's going to be out indefinitely because of a hamstring injury. This was head coach Willie Green yesterday after practice.
It's an unfortunate injury and blow to our team, obviously. You know, losing Z, losing the guys that we've lost. But at the end of the day, you know, we're grateful that it's not season ending, it's not career ending. And, you know, everybody's going to continue to work together to try to come up with a resolution to get our guys back on the floor and get them on the floor healthy.
Jim, you were there at practice. You got to imagine it's like, come on, yet another injury.
Yeah, I mean, the only really, positive, I guess, if you could say this is about it is, as Willie Green mentioned, that it's not, you know, a season-ending injury. It's not a long-term thing that's going to put him out for a long time, hopefully. So, I mean, it's just something that they're going to have to keep dealing with. It is hard to believe the list of injuries that this team has right now. Unfortunately, it's also part of a larger trend across the NBA where there's guys out everywhere. I mean,
I saw Kevin Durant over the weekend.
Yeah,
right?
Kevin Durant's out. Pelicans just played the Magic without Paolo Banchero. I mean, there's a ton of guys that are on the injured list right now. I do wonder, probably not going to get into this today, but I do wonder across the league if we need to re-examine the way that preseason is treated in terms of it seems like it's going the way of the NFL where they're not treating it as a way to kind of scale up to the regular season. It's kind of like, let's protect guys, let's not play them a ton of minutes. But that's a discussion for another day, and I'm not a doctor, so...
Yeah, look, we can maybe discuss that sometimes and maybe even bring in Antonio Daniels, former players, current players, on how to get that because obviously we're in the same building that you share with the Saints, and they have lost a ton of players this year as well. So I don't think it's just sports-specific. Maybe, Jim, there's something to the fact that there really is no offseason for players anymore. You know, maybe that's the case. Both sports that we share a team with here in this building kind of do the same thing like you're saying with the NFL. You know, maybe that ramp up here, you don't want to get injured in practice. You don't want to tackle in the offseason. You don't want to do those things. But maybe leading to your point, it's hard to all of a sudden tell like a player to go 100%. And maybe that's the issue. I don't know. There's got to be something to the fact that I don't remember this many players being out all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been a trend across the league the last couple of years, too. I mean, it seems like it's a little extreme this year across the NBA. It's definitely to a greater degree than what I remember. But yeah, I mean, to me, the philosophy about preseason changed a few years ago as well. So, I mean, that's all I got for you, Gus.
No, I hear you. And I think the thing is interesting because I get this over the weekend, right? Here we go again. It's the doctors and all this other stuff. But I look at the Pels specific injury. Other than Zion, that was a soft tissue, and Trey Murphy was one as well. DeJounte Murray goes up for a shot, gets fouled, lands on it, breaks his hand.
That's bad luck.
Right. CJ McCollum's diving for a ball, and I think he got hit on his side, and that kind of hurt his oblique, right?
Herb got driven into the ground.
Herb Jones is diving for a loose ball, and your boy from Golden State lands on his shoulder. So, I mean, at least in those 3 injuries, those are in the act of playing and just bad luck, I guess, when you look at it from that snake. I mean, I do think that's important to state, though, right?
Sure. I mean, that's definitely been a part of it. There's been stuff that's unavoidable. There's things that, and we don't know why, but it just seems like this team has some of the worst luck we've ever seen when it comes to stuff like that.
I mean, Jordan Hawkins, playing, gets hit in the back. I mean, it's
right.
It suffers bite. So look, anyway, it'll get to that. There is some good news though over the weekend because yesterday we got it official. We were kind of hinted on Friday. Head Coach Willie Green after the game said Trey Murphy is going to be coming back this week. Yesterday was made official. We will see him tonight against the Brooklyn Nets. Much needed reinforcement.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that he provides, especially the three-point shooting, the spacing, this team needs scoring punch regardless of where it comes from on the floor. But for him to be able to give another threat from downtown with C.J. McCollum not on the court right now is huge. I mean, they scored 88 points in the game Friday against Orlando. We've seen pretty consistently during this stretch where they haven't been able to win many games. The offense is just not at a level where it can compete and stay in games in the 2024 version of the NBA.
No doubt. It's tough for sure. But this is what Trey had to say after practice on Sunday.
How's the recovery process been for you?
Not as bad as the last one, I'll tell you that. So, it was just another process where it was like it already happened. So you just got to attack it now, just get back to being better than I was when I first got injured. So, yeah.
With so many guys that have been out during this time, has it been harder to stay patient or, to get back on the court?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, obviously it sucks watching and knowing you can help a lot, with the team's success. But at the end of the day, we can start off like this and then I try to rush back and now I'm figuring this out for the rest of the season. It'd be better for me to just handle it now so then the whole season I'm not thinking about it.
So he's obviously excited to get back on there on the court. Look, we talked about it back on Friday, the importance of trying to get these wins against Eastern Conference teams. The Nets are one of those surprise teams this year. They're going to play hard. But really at this point, Jim, it's kind of one of those things. When you're undermanned, when players are going down and other players are being asked to step up, and you've lost 6 or 7, every game is going to be a difficult game, and every game is a tough game. You just have got to somehow get through November because I do think this team's going to get healthy. Coach Willie Green said it. It's going to come in the near future. It'll be before the calendar year turns. You'll see most of the guys back. You just got to somehow trudge through November.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to scratch and claw and figure out ways to win games in any way possible. At this point, they'll take a 1-point win over anyone. Doesn't matter. I mean, one of the things I looked at with Trey Murphy coming back, too, is last season, they were 35-22 in the 57 games that he played. Mm-hmm. They were only 14-11 when he didn't play, so they were just barely above 500 when he wasn't on the court. They started out 10-9 last season without him. Start out 3-7 this season without him to begin the year. So hopefully he can make a big dent in the win-loss record. Obviously, though, the situation this season is much different from last year where they had so many more of their main guys were available when he made his season debut on December 1st of last season against San Antonio. But either way, I think it's so good to start having guys come back to the lineup, and hopefully we'll get more news like this over the next couple weeks.
No doubt. One of the positive things, though, Jim, and again, I'm not trying to look for positive. This is a legit positive. Brandon Boston Jr., I feel like we've been talking a ton about him the last couple of days, but for good reason, right, in the last couple of podcasts. He's getting an opportunity, and he's taking advantage of it. Last Wednesday, we spoke with Wes Johnson, who was there when he first came into the league, didn't get that opportunity. He's getting the opportunity now. And look, he led the team in scoring against Orlando with 26 points there. And you had a chance to talk with him over the weekend. It's interesting just to kind of see the opportunity and a player take it.
I mean, he's been so consistent since he's been elevated to that starting role. And really, from the moment that he got the opportunity to play minutes, even before he actually became a starter, he's been very consistent and productive during that time. So, yeah, it was fun getting to speak with him Sunday after practice. And, you mentioned the part about with the time that he was with the Clippers, he was with them for 3 seasons. One of the things that he talks about with me is how he had a lot of good mentors. He had a lot of good vets, as he called them there. And he lists a bunch of guys. So it's interesting. It seemed like they were really positive with him and tried to help him out. But on the other hand, there was a lot of guys that were blocking him from playing. So, I mean, that was tough. I mean, when you go to a team that already has Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Marcus Morris and Robert Covington and Terrence Mann, some of the guys that he listed as people that he leaned on as far as advice in terms of, they would take him aside and just be like, hey, man, you got to be patient and you got to, just hang in there and keep working. And eventually you're going to get your opportunity. He really never did get his opportunity with the Clippers. It took him, obviously coming to a different team here and then a bunch of guys getting injured for him to play more minutes. But so I thought that part of it was interesting. And the other thing that was interesting, people will hear when they listen to this, he's actually from the same hometown as a certain Saints running back who's extremely popular here. So we talked about how his hometown of 17,000 people population has generated a ton of athletes, including current Pelicans assistant coach Jody Meeks, who had a long career in the NBA, is also from the same hometown as Brandon Boston. So just a little interesting fact that when I was researching him, I looked up and I thought was cool that he's got a few connections already to the Pelicans and the Saints here.
All right, where's conversation with Jim Eichenhofer and Brandon Boston now?
Welcome back to the Pelicans Podcast. I'm here with Brandon Boston. Brandon, I know you haven't been here for that long. They signed you like right before things got serious, but I mean, you've been here for a couple weeks now. The schedule's been really hectic with a lot of games and not even that much practice time. But what's your adjustment been like as far as the city of New Orleans? Have you had time to get acclimated, go to find some good food spots, stuff like that?
Honestly, I haven't really did much in the city. We've been playing every 2 days, so I feel like we've been playing every day. But, I've just been trying to just get in the gym, do what I can, learn the plays, learn the team, learn the organization. But it's been good. Everybody's been welcoming me with open arms, so I'm just taking advantage of the time that I have right now.
I know it's also been very brief, but what's it been like interacting with fans? I mean, it seems like people have definitely embraced you, especially with the way that you contributed so far.
As long as the fans love me, I love the fans. Mm-hmm. I'm from the South, so I know what Southern hospitality feels like. So it just kind of feels like home here.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were asked about your plan kind of going into the season that right before the Pelicans got a hold of you and you signed the 2-way contract with them, that I think you said that you were headed back to Texas. Is that where you lived like during the off season?
No, I'm from Atlanta, so I go back home to Atlanta, but I signed a training camp deal with the Spurs.
Okay.
So I actually got waived, and then I was going to play G League. So they actually sent us home for like 2 days, and on the second day home, my agent called me like, yo, they cleared all your waivers, you can go with the Pelicans on the 2-way. I'm like, all right, bet. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, it's been great.
Yeah. You probably didn't even have much time to really digest it, but what were you thinking in between the time that you were waived and then the Pelicans signed you to the deal that they did?
Honestly, I was just going to make the best of my situation, Like I said, just trusting God, trusting my work, and just controlling what I can control. Because, at the end of the day, it's a business, so you got to look at it as such.
A couple games ago or practices ago, I remember you said that you were happy to even just get a shoot around. I think it was the Wednesday game against Cleveland, just to be able to learn the playbook and get more acclimated to the system. Are there certain teammates that you've kind of leaned on to get adjusted? There's a few guys that have been here for a while. Are there certain guys that you kind of have gone to for help or advice with adjusting?
I would say all of them. So really, but Herb, B.I., Zion, Trey. So those guys I really communicate with a lot as far as asking questions. Jose, even when I don't know things, even those guys give me the confidence just to be myself coming into the game. Like you said, I haven't practiced with them, so I don't want to step on no toes. So it's just being the right role and being in the right position at all times.
Have you had a chance to talk to anyone specifically about the city as far as CJ has a book of restaurant places to go to? Have you talked to anybody about the city?
I actually tapped in with Anthony Davis the other night about the city.
Okay.
He was here for a couple of years.
Right.
So he gave me a couple of restaurants and a list of things.
Gotcha. I was wondering about, obviously you played 3 years with the Clippers. That team was loaded with talent, especially at the wing. Yeah. How did you kind of deal with the fact that you when you had chances to play, you did really well? You had some 20-point games here and there. How did you kind of deal with that mentally as far as just trying to be patient and get your opportunity?
Honestly, it was hard because I'm a hooper at the end of the day. Everybody wants to come out here and showcase the talent and the things that I work on. But it's just having the right support system, having the right mindset every day to just come in here and continue to get better 1% at a time, and just stacking as many good days to control what I control. And once you do that, I feel like you just look at everything the right way.
Did you have, whether it was teammates on the Clippers or guys that you knew around the league that tried to keep you encouraged, saying, like, we know you can play, but you just got to wait for your chance and just try to keep your head up and be patient?
For sure. I had great vets with the Clippers. Marcus Morris, John Wall, James Harden, Kawhi, PG, Robert Covington, Reggie Jackson, like, the list goes on. I had great vets. T-Man. So those guys just, they keeping my spirits high, working with them. They're taking me under their wing. It was very good.
I mentioned how, if you go through the stats and you go through the games that you did play in, I mean, there's a bunch of games that stand out. But it seemed like really the only time that you consistently had a chance to play there in games was like the end of the season, April. Yeah. They had already locked up a playoff spot. Yeah. In the last 2 or 3 games of the season, you got to play a good amount of minutes and produced. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you treat those games as kind of like your NBA Finals, or like, this is your time to kind of shine and show what you can do?
Every time I step on the court, I try to, I wouldn't say prove anything. I would just say put together a great game of my work. So just going out there playing hard on both ends of the floor and just trying to put together a complete game.
We talked to Wes Johnson the other day, actually, on the podcast, and we asked him a few questions about you from his experience that he had of being your player development coach with the Clippers. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that one of the things that he was focused on with you was making quick decisions with the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that factor in? Was it just kind of like about tweaking the way that you play, or tweaking the way that you played offense, basically?
Basically, because I would say coming in, I would use a lot of my dribbling when I really didn't have to. Mm-hmm. So you see, now I'm figuring out my spots. Well, I figured out my spots. Just getting to them in the 0.5 matter, whether that's on the closeout, shoot it, drive, or pass.
Yeah.
So it's just those things, playing the right way.
Do you feel like, I mean, I know it's been 5 or 6 games since you've gotten to play here a lot. Do you feel like you're kind of putting everything together that you've been working on throughout the time that you've been in the NBA?
So this year I feel like every game I played this year, I've been getting better each game. So it's just figuring out, like I said, my spots, figuring out my teammates' spots, figuring out when to be aggressive, figuring out when to pass, and just give my all on the defensive end and just letting my defense really dictate my game.
Have you been, based on the circumstances here, have you been like handling the ball more, on the ball more than you were with the Clippers, based on, I know
for sure
every time you played with them there's a bunch of guys that handle the ball?
For sure. So here they actually got me bringing the ball up, having the ball in my hands. And I feel like that's great, because me, the way I play, I'm a hooper. So if I have the ball in my hands, I'm going to be more involved. The feel of the game is going to be way easier. And I feel like just me sitting in the corners, not really. I mean, I could play out the corner, but that's not really what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But if a team needs me to do that, I'll do it. Yeah. So it's just figuring out what the team needs me to do and just doing it.
You mentioned that you're from Georgia, and I looked up, where you were born in Norcross, Georgia. It's a population of 17,000, but it's astounding to see the number of like known athletes that come from there. Yeah. I mean, how do you explain just the number of NBA, NFL, like everything, guys that have come from there?
I feel like, just growing up in Atlanta, in the metro Atlanta area, it's just, you got to figure out how to stay out the way. And I feel like a lot of us gravitate towards sports, so that's basketball, football, baseball, track, and some of us just took off with it. So I think that's where that comes from, just finding a way to get away from the city, honestly.
I think a lot of New Orleans sports fans are well aware of the fact that Alvin Kamara is also from there.
Yeah.
Do you know him at all from your background of being from there?
Yeah, I know him. So we actually know, we have mutual friends, mutual family members. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Have you had a chance to catch up with him? I know you guys are both crazy busy right now, but have you had a chance to talk to him since you came here?
Nah, not really, but I'm gonna tap in with him for sure.
Yeah. Gotcha. Also, I saw when I was going through the same list of guys that were from there, I saw Jody Meeks, assistant coach, is from there. Have you guys had any conversations? I mean, obviously he's a little bit older than you, but have you had any conversations about Norcross?
Nah, for sure. He coming from the same high school where I came from. It's just, we can relate a lot. So he pulls me aside, try to let me know what I'm doing right, let me know what I'm doing wrong, and I also ask questions when I don't know.
Were you aware of his career, like when he was playing in the NBA, in terms of the shooter that he was?
For sure. Jody Meeks, ready to catch and shoot.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's funny because there was a recent practice where, at the end of practice, Trey Murphy and Jody Meeks were doing shooting games against Corey Brewer, and I said to Trey, is Corey out of his mind? Like, why would you shoot against? Why would you pick those two guys to shoot against in a shooting game?
Brew is that guy though. He thinks he could beat anybody and everything, but that's good. That's the energy we need because it's going to translate and carry on to the next guy.
We appreciate you taking the time, man, and congratulations on what you've done so far, and we're happy to have you here.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Our thanks to Brandon for sitting down with Jim, and our thanks to Jim for making that a really good interview.
Well, it's a Monday. Thankfully, Jim is always our Friday. It's time for Mr. Eichenhofer to give his players of the week and a player to watch for this week. What you got, big guy?
There it is. What you got?
Thank you, Mallory.
Jose Alvarado had 7 threes. He could be a candidate. Brandon Boston led the team in scoring. He could be a candidate. Is there a player that stands out to you in the week's worth of basketball?
Why don't we go with both of those guys?
I like that.
With those two as the players of the week. I mean, they had to move into the starting backcourt with a bunch of injuries. It feels like there was an initial wave of Pelicans injuries, and then there was a second one, and now you end up with Boston replacing Jordan Hawkins because of injury, and then Jose's been at the point guard spot for the last few games. But yeah, I think those guys were really big sparks. Unfortunately, the Pelicans lost the 3 games that they played during the week, but I think those guys did as well as you could ask for in terms of having to suddenly become the starting backcourt. I'm sure those guys don't know each other very well, but they showed some good chemistry. Jose had a 7-for-7 3-point game against Cleveland. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Boston really has been, I don't think he's had one bad game since he's been playing, 15, 20-plus minutes every single night. So commendable consistency from him. And so those two guys are the players of the week for last week, which was week 3 of the NBA.
Week 3.
So for week 4 of the Pelicans and the NBA schedule, I'm going to go with 2 players to watch as well, Gus. I'm kind of, breaking the rules here. First player to watch for me is going to be Yves Missi. And this is very schedule related in terms of who the Pelicans are playing this week. They actually have a lot of quality big guys that they're going against with these opponents. Brooklyn tonight, Nick Claxton. On Wednesday, they play Oklahoma City. Chet Holmgren, although Chet Holmgren did get hurt in the game last night. I think he got kind of hit in the face or something and was out for the rest of the game. I mean, so I don't know if he's going to be playing Wednesday. I would imagine he will be. Hopefully that's something that isn't going to keep him out for a while. And then Friday, Jokic is going to be the center for Denver, obviously. And then Saturday, Mr. Anthony Davis and the Lakers. So, I mean, the lineup of guys that Yves Missi is going to go up against, I think, is definitely going to be one of those welcome to the NBA rookie learning curve weeks. And then the second player to watch is kind of a little bit of an obvious one with Trey Murphy making his season debut. He averaged 3 3-point makes a game last season, which was second on the Pelicans behind C.J. McCollum, who was at 3.6. So really curious to see the impact that Trey can make. He mentioned Sunday as well that he's going to be on a minute restriction, but they hadn't really pinned it down yet, or at least they hadn't told us what it was on Sunday. But he's going to be on a minute restriction initially, and then hopefully within a couple games he'll be able to ramp up to whatever his normal minutes are going to be this season. And so Yves Missi, Trey Murphy, players to watch this week for the Pelicans.
Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, Jim_Eichenhofer is the way to follow over there on X. And, of course, Pelicans.com. And we'll have your 3 things coming up after the game tonight against the Nets. Nets tonight at OKC on Wednesday, then back home Friday and Saturday, the Nuggets. And Jim's favorite team, the Lakers. I know you can't wait.
I'll be there in my purple and gold.
Yes, I know. People don't know. He actually went out. He, what was it? One of those sites online that you can get very, very, very cheap, but good-looking slacks, gold slacks. You go with gold slacks and a purple coat on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Or not. We'll see you on Wednesday on the next episode of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast